Board of Education. The time is 5:30. Please be advised that a recording or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board. Clerk Troutman, please take. Trustee Andiano. Present. Trustee Martinez Laura. Present. Trustee Nogales. Present. Trustee Ruiz. Present. And I, Trustee Troutman, am present. Please let the record reflect we have a quorum. Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. We now invite our cadet board to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Telegram. Oh. Left. Face. Freeze that. Color.
Ready, begin.
Right. Face. Forward. Mark. Mark. Oh.
Thank you. Item 1.3, adopt the agenda. I know that we do have a change to move item 6.6 up to 6.1. Aside from that change, are there any other changes? No? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt and to adopt the agenda as amended? I have a motion for Ms. Troutman and a second for Ms. Ruiz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the agenda is adopted as amended with the 5-0. Item 1.4, to the board member of office and report. Yes. We would like to welcome our new student board member, Amon.
So this is how we're gonna have you swear in. Yes. It's very sharp, sir.
Okay. I pledge to fulfill my duties as a student representative to the Banning Unified School District of Trustees.
To the Banning Unified School District of Trustees, serving as a liaison between the governing body and the school district and all Banning students. Between the 2023 and 2024 school year. To provide insight and assist the board with decision making and items that impact our students.
Welcome.
Good evening, Board President Warren, distinguished members of the board, superintendent, Dave, members of the band community. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the profound sense of commitment of the board has shown to our campus by hiring the newest members of our staff, including but not limited to our new principal, Mr. Patton. Mr. Patton's dedication extends from ensuring that every student's voice is heard to even a little task, such as maintaining the cleanliness of our campus by ourselves. Another incredible member of our community is our new college and career counselor, Mr. Zola Meredith. She has become an invaluable asset to the class of 2024, making sure we're aware of upcoming opportunities and events, helping students refine their college essays so that they shine, and providing opportunities for students to attend college fairs and field trips. With the combined expertise of Mr. Paz, Mr. Meredith, and our latest faculty additions, we're confident that the academic year 2023 to 2034 holds the promise of a bright future. Next, I'd like to discuss ideas I have on the matter of student voice. I'd like to introduce an initiative called Your Voice Our Strength to ensure that every student's voice is heard and valued. This campaign would include rewards such as gift cards for completing district-wide service and year-round letter stations in the school offices. It is my hope that providing these opportunities will foster a sense of engagement and belonging amongst the Banning Unified students. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of our marching Bronco Regiment, cheer team, Broadway Broncos, CTE Automotive, and Cadet Corps who recently participated in the Stage Coach Days Parade. Did an amazing job representing our community Bronco Pride. I would like to also acknowledge the dedication and commitment of ASB who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes since the beginning of the year and ensuring there's always something happening at Banning High for our students to be involved with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Item 1.5, student presentations. I would like to invite Dr. Kathy Bush to the podium to introduce this evening's student presentation.
Good evening. Good evening, President Anguiano, distinguished members of the board and the Banning Unified School District Community, Superintendent Davis. It is my pleasure as we open up the 23-24 academic school year with some very special individuals who will be coming forth to talk about some amazing and great things they're doing at their respective school sites. We'll first begin with Camila Samaniego, a 5th grade student at Cabazon Elementary. Come on up.
Good evening, Board President Aguano, distinguished members of the board, Superintendent Davis, and members of the Banning community. I'm Camila Samanego, a 5th grade student at Cabazon Elementary School. I'm here to share some things that have been happening at our school. The school year started with new paintings on the playground. It is so nice to play on a colorful playground this year. We also have some new decor in the cafeteria where we have college flags and pendants because we are focusing on college and career readiness this year. Each Wednesday classes, we learn about a new college and get to take a virtual field trip to tour the campus. We recently had a PBIS assembly about our school expectations. We also did a passport activity about our school expectation in the office, playground, and cafeteria. Our school is participating in band and orchestra for 5th grade students. We just recently had an assembly where orchestra and band teacher came to our school. Our school is also going to be taking Unit 1 benchmark test next week. Our school will be also having awards night ceremony for the students who met or exceeded standards on our state test. And for those students who moved up a level or points, Dr. Anderson will be handing out trophies for those students who met or exceeded, and a medal to those who grew in points. On Wednesdays, we wear Avid or college shirts. On Fridays, we wear Cabazon shirts or anything green. On Wednesdays, on Friday, September 8th, we had Western Day. That was a day to dress up as a cowboy or cowgirl. Our school recently won 2 trophies for the Stagecoach Parade. We won the best school float and best use of theme. Our float was Barbie themed, and our teachers and staff dressed up. It was so fun. As a 5th grader, I am looking forward to do a History Day project. I am excited about joining orchestra and playing either the cello or violin. I also enjoy being a 5th grader because I get to be in Dino Patrol. Dino Patrol is where I get to go out during lower grade recess and help solve conflicts. I love being a 5th grade leader at Cabazon Elementary School.
Thank you very much, Camila. Next, we have joining us from Nicollet Middle School, Rose Yang, our ASB Middle School President.
Good evening, Board President Anguiano, distinguished members of the board, Superintendent Davis, and members of the Banning community. My name is Rose Yang, and I am the ASB president at Nicollet Middle School. I'm here to share with you all the Palomino pride that has happened in the past month since school started. Palominos embrace familiar faces and welcome new stars to our extended family that include Mr. Diopolo, Miss Doggs, Mr. Ramos, Miss Lopez, and our new assistant principal, Mr. Downer. August 3rd, Web Crew hosted 6th grade orientation with games, lunch, and a tour of the school. 6th graders were given an opportunity to meet an 8th grade leader who will mentor them this school year. August 8th, Palominos returned back to school. Our first week of school started well with our new cell phone policy. We see it, we take it. Club Rush showed many enrichment activities and opportunities for students such as Legos, arts and crafts, gardening, weightlifting, game club, and morning mile. What a great way to get our students involved. After spirited campaigns, ASB students have officially assumed their elected roles and are now settling in to make a positive impact. Remarkable start. The students shine in the first diagnostic of the school. Our first Spirit Week was an absolute blast, uniting our school community with unmatched enthusiasm, creativity, and school spirit. The Palominos are dribbling their way into a slam dunk season. August 23rd, Back to School Night was held and provided parents with a valuable opportunity to explore our campus, engage with staff, and build connections for a successful school year. BARR have started their weekly meetings on campus. On September 7th, ASB represented Nicollet at the Stagecoach Street Fair. September 9th, the Palominos were able to unveil our spectacular float during the Stagecoach Parade. Palominos tied first in the parade. Monday, September 11th, we wore red, white, and blue in honor of Patriot Day, honoring the heroes and fallen. Finishing off September, we will pair all of our fall events, including a back-to-school / Halloween dance, Haunted the Engine, and Red Ribbon Week. Our first pack track will end September 29th, and those that qualify will enjoy Kona Ice treats during lunchtime. There are many events planned, including dances, wearing pink on Fridays in the month of October, students versus staff game. Nicollet has some thrilling surprises and unforgettable events in store. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much, Rose. Up from Coombs Alternative is Mr. Daniel Martin.
Good evening, Board President Ms. Indiaga. Sorry if I got it. Distinguished members of the board, Superintendent Davis, and members of the Bannock community. I am Daniel Martinez Jr., a senior from New Horizons High School and a proud member, class of 24. I'm honored to be this year's Coombs student speaker, sharing our district message. It begins with me. Here are some of our highlights. New Horizons and BIS had an awesome turnout this year for our back to school night on August 9th. And New Horizons and BIS exact path and iReady diagnostics test have been administered. Students are busy working on their learning paths. We are excited for our Coombs students that are once again taking CTE courses and participating in cadet corps at Banning High School. We had Coombs Picture Day on September 6th, which means great pictures for our campus IDs and yearbook. FNL froze out the competition, selling their snow cones at the Stagecoach Days Street Fair and Dance on September 5th. Our co-ed volleyball team has begun practicing and is looking forward to this fall season. Their first match, September 14th. Thank you, Coach Aha and Coach Taylor for filling this year's team. PBIS Pride and Success. New Horizons earned a Gold State Recognition Award from California. PBIS Pride. Awards means improved academics and attendance. Weekly Pride tickets are cashed in for snacks and prizes, and well, pride. Thank you, Miss Stephanie and Mrs. Anna for opening the PBIS store for us. The Esports Club with Mr. Venture has officially started this year. Special thank you to all who made our esports computer lab possible. Safe House of the Desert Cup of Happy has returned to Coombs this year. Throughout the year, they will be sharing information about recovery from anxiety, depression, stress, or anger, while promoting and encouraging students to seek help and support if needed. Thank you for allowing me to share our Coombs Alternative Report with you. Have a good day.
Hard sometimes speaking before a group. If we could please give our students another round of applause. I think and last but certainly not least, representing Banning High School's ASB is Miss Chloe. Come on up, Chloe.
Okay, so, these are curls, okay. Good evening, President Anguiano, distinguished members of the school board, Superintendent Davis, members of the cabinet, and members of the community. My name is Chloe Dabocon, and I am the Associated Students Body President of Banning High School, the home of the Broncos. We are officially a month into the school year. We have celebrated the incoming freshman class and welcomed them into ASB. This year, we are proud to say that ASB has 60 students and so much spirit. Our Banning Bronco football team took their first win against Desert Christian 62-0, and we're hoping to see some more upcoming wins. Fall sports are well underway, and our athletes are giving their all on the field, in the pool, and on the courts. Big Green Fridays are back this year, and we have started wearing college gear on Thursdays. We are hosting a blood drive on September 25th with live stream. Some of the blood donated will be going to help those in Maui, and part of it will be going to help our local community. We want our students to remember that one donation can save up to 3 lives. Our clubs have been showing so much school spirit and have been doing a great job getting students involved. Spanish Club and ASB are hosting a quinceañera fashion show on September 29th. Many of the girls are so excited to put back on their dresses they once wore at such a big moment in their lives. Even students who don't have their own dresses can participate. Mrs. Reyes has graciously offered 3 dresses they are able to wear. We are so excited to announce our biggest upcoming event, Homecoming Bar Nights, a night of fright and costumes that will spook everyone all night long on October 14th. Our prep rally will be on October 13th. We're working hard to prepare for many different things for each class. We've decided to give each class a movie. Seniors have chosen Scream, juniors are Jigsaw, sophomores are It, the Clown, and freshmen have decided on Chucky, also known as Child's Play. We are so excited to see how the school year unfolds and are looking forward to much more.
Thank you so much. That concludes our student presentations for the evening.
Thank you. Item 1.6, opportunity for community comments, closed session item. Did we receive any community comments? No. Okay. We go on to item 2, closed session. The board will now go into closed session. The time is 5:51 p.m. Trustee Martinez Laura. Present. Trustee Morales. Present. Trustee Ruiz. Present. And Trustee Chapman present. Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Thank you. Item 3.1, report closed session. Clerk Chow, please share.
Item 2.1 in closed session, the board will return to closed session at the end. Item 2.2 in closed session, the board received information and was updated. Item 2.3 in closed session, the board received information and was updated. Item 2.4 in closed session, the board received information and was updated. Item 2.5 in closed session, the board received information and took action. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the appointment of Dr. Tammy Thomas for the middle school principal position at Nicollet Middle School. Motion was made by Clerk Troutman and seconded by Trustee Martinez Lara and carried on a 4-1 vote. Congratulations, Dr. Thomas. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the appointment of Terry Ware for the systems engineer position. Motion made by Trustee Ruiz, seconded by Trustee Morales, and carried on a 5-0 vote. Congratulations, Ms.
Good evening, President Amiano, Clerk Troutman, distinguished board members, Superintendent Davis, Cabinet, and community members. On behalf of the Banning Unified School District Board of Trustees and Superintendent Davis, we are excited to announce Dr. Cami Thomas as principal for Nicollet Middle School for the Banning Unified School District. Dr. Thomas spent 1 year with Chino Hills Unified School District working as a French teacher. Then she moved on to spend 7 years with Azusa Unified School District as a French teacher and a CAS coordinator. Dr. Thomas also worked for Rialto Unified School District as a French teacher and bar coordinator. Most recently, Dr. Thomas has served as the assistant principal for Nicollet Middle School. Dr. Thomas earned her Bachelor's of Art degree in French from the University of California, Riverside. She then went on to earn her Master's of Arts in Education from the Azusa Pacific University. Dr. Thomas culminated her studies by earning her Doctor of Education from the University of Southern California. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Cami Thomas as the principal of Nicollet Middle School.
Board President Aguiano, distinguished board members, Superintendent David, dear colleagues, and members of the Banning community. I am so very honored to have received this appointment, and I'm very excited to continue to serve the deserving families and students and my wonderful family of staff over at Nicollet. I'm so excited to work in a new capacity alongside my colleague Art Paz, who's here at the high school, to strengthen the relationship between the middle school and the high school. I cannot wait to get to know our middle school principals and staff more to make the transition from elementary to middle stronger. I'm so excited for all the things that we're going to be able to do together. There's nothing that we can't accomplish with the family mentality that we have here in our beautiful Banning community. And thank you guys so much for your faith in me. I feel nothing short of blessed.
We are also excited to announce Terry Ware as our systems engineer for the Banning Unified School District. Terry Ware is a veteran of the United States Army, where he served his country for 7 years. Mr. Ware has over 17 years of experience in the information technology field and has been with the Banning Unified School District since 2016, where he has served as a technology technician. Mr. Ware is a Banning High School graduate, the class of 1999. He then went on to earn his associate's degree in computer electronics engineering from the School of Electronics. He also earned his bachelor's of science in information system security from ITT Technical Institute. Please join us in welcoming Terry Ware as our systems engineer.
Board President Aguilar, distinguished board members, Superintendent Mr. Davis, my executive staff, all my colleagues here, the city of Banning, I know you guys are watching. I want to thank you guys for this opportunity. This is a dream come true. I just want to make sure that I'm everything that you guys see in me, and I want to do everything to the best of my ability. Thank you.
You deserve that post for being an alumni.
All right, congratulations, you guys. Okay, item 3.2, opportunity for community comment. Have we received any comments? No comments. Okay. Item 3.3, BTA comments. I would like to welcome BTA President, Mr. Anthony Garcia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'd just like to congratulate Cammie Thomas and Terry Ware for their appointments, the promotions. And we've been a month in, things are going pretty smoothly. We have a few issues out, so hoping to get those solved very soon. And last week we were in NCE professional development. And I'm very excited to see where that takes us and where that takes the district. And I'm hopeful that we can keep improving the district. Thank you.
Item 3.4, CSDA comments. I would like to welcome CSDA President, Ms. Jennifer Sickle.
Good evening, Jennifer Serrano, President of CSCA 147 here in Banning. I would also like to congratulate Ms. Cammie Thomas, Dr. Cammie Thomas, on her appointment as the principal of Nicolette's. She is. I look forward to working with you and building a stronger bond with CSDA and your administrative team. And Terry's already cut out. We did the dance all the way out, but we'd like to congratulate Terry Ware on his appointment and his promotion. Congratulations, Terry. You've gained an asset. Terry, I know we trained him personally, so did a great job. Yes, okay. Anthony Garcia said, a little things outstanding, and we hope to work on, hopefully we can schedule some time with Superintendent David and with Mr. Baker with BSA to hash out some of those issues that are coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3.4, item 4.1, superintendent comment.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam President, again, clerk, members of the board and our community. So just a few things I want to share. First, starting with our stagecoach parade. We had our city of Banning, community members, school district, out on Saturday, and I just have to say that being in the parade, been in another parade, and they're very impactful because you really get to see the community that we serve. You don't get to see that any other time. At pickup, dismissal, or maybe meetings, you see parents, you see students, but it's different when you see the community. And I'm just really proud to be a part of this community. I'm proud to serve the community. And if you were on a float, anyone in here on a float? Okay, so a few people, and you know, you have to make eye contact, you have to wave. And the students see you and they really appreciate that. That's work, but it connects, it creates a bond. And so everyone who was a part of making a float, being in an outfit, there's a lot of work that went into a parade, but everybody loves a parade, and that's what I said. So thank everyone who was involved. Next are athletic programs. Just want to really talk about the coaches, the coverage of the games, the attendance, the students, staff support. What does it say? Staff free. I don't even know if that's supposed to mean. But bottom line is, we have so many people that make our athletic programs work and run. We recently released the Banning Real Talk podcast Monday, and there was a student that graduated in 2022. And he came back for a football game a couple of weeks ago. And in that podcast, I would encourage everyone to listen to. He talks about, from his perspective, the difference between when he was here as a student in Banning and what he saw just in that one game. He talked about connectivity with parents, with students. He talked about the environment. He talked about how tough it is to be a student here. And that student will actually be graduating from Lutheran, Iowa, IWA, in the fall. And actually has a younger sister here that will be graduating here, Banning High School in the fall. And I really want to encourage you to listen to this podcast because it really sums up what all of our community that work here are doing for students. He's really the epitome of a strong young man doing great things in life is because of you. Definitely his parents, but because of the support that he has in our community. So I just want to thank everyone in our program for their time and effort that they spend. Next, college and career. So we interviewed another student. Actually, she was here this evening, Chloe Durham. Did I say that right? Thank you, Director. And so that podcast, we have to redo it, but she talked a little bit about college and career and certain things that she's seeing on the high school campus now. We recently hired a specific college and career counselor to focus on students getting to post-secondary goals. And that is one of the biggest things that we do. I think a board member recently asked me to track data on students that graduate and are successful with it. Tonight, two of our students at the podium talked about college and career. So it's something that students know about, but we can do a better job in ensuring that they're connected to the future. So, in college career connecting students to do. So it's just a strong push that we're really diving into, dedicating staff to make sure students know what the opportunities are when they graduate school. Finally, I just want to echo Anthony Garcia talked about is the work with the National Center on Education and the Economy. So next month, in a few weeks, we're going to finish a 8-session meeting. And in this group, we have parents, we have board members, we have teachers, we have administrative staff, and really that team has done a lot. And the whole goal is to create an effective system for students to achieve. And we've had a lot of great conversations. And one of the things I'm most proud of right now is hearing our teachers' voice. But we could talk all day about what we think things are and how we think things are going. But unless we talk to the people doing the work, the teachers in the classroom, the staff supporting the classroom, that's what we really learn what we're doing and how we can improve where we can. But those teachers in that session have been courageous, if you will, to share what they really feel without fear of retribution. And that's just a climate that was created in a short amount of time. But thank you for having those teachers on there, and it will really serve us well into the future and each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 5, consent calendar. Station to approve the calendar agenda items 5.2 through 5.4 as provided. All matters listed on the calendar agenda are considered to be routine, and acted by one motion and vote. There is no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Education considers the motion, unless a member of the board or administrative staff requests that specific items be discussed and approved. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar agenda?
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Martinez Lara and a second from Ms. Oh, my bad. From Ms. Navarre and a second from Ms. Troutman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 6.1, public hearing. Oh. My apologies. So the next item is 6.6. Business Services General Obligation Bond Total Opinion Survey. At this time, we invite Mr. Herrera to the podium to introduce those who will speak on the general obligation bonds.
Yes. Do we have copies?
Good evening, President Giuliano, Martin Brotman, distinguished board members, Superintendent Davis, members of the cabinet, members of the Senate cabinet, community at large here in person and virtually joining us today. There is a copy of the presentation before you there, and there's also a being projected and copies for the public here in the room today. And so today I have the privilege of sharing with you information related to the general obligation bond process. And so for school facilities, there's three main mechanisms for funding, one of which is local funding through developer fees or restricted general fund. Also, there's state funding for facilities specifically, and in the pipeline, there's currently two initiatives that may make it to the 2024 ballot at the state level for school facilities bonds. Also, the third mechanism is a general obligation bond here within the school district boundaries. And so today I do have our fiscal advisor with Del Scott and Company, Ms. Nicole Roberts, joining us to provide some more information in terms of what the general obligation bond is. Also, what would be the first step in a litmus test, meaning the sensitivity of the voters in terms of the approval of such bond. And so without much further ado, I'll go ahead and present Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Victor. I'll self-situated here. Good evening. Madam President, distinguished trustees, executive members, executive team, and members of the community. My name is Nicole Roberts. I'm with Dale Scott and Company, and I have a pretty short presentation to go over with you. It covers your current bond program and then kind of next steps on what a 2024 bond election could look like. So let's just jump in here on slide 2. So voters have approved 3 bond elections for Banning. First one in 2002, Measure L, Measure R in 2006, and Measure M in 2016. I'd like to point out that Measure M reauthorized a portion of Measure R. So you see the 25.5 million of Measure M plus the 37.5 million from Measure R equals that total 63 million from the original Measure R. So it's not, 63 plus 25.5, it's that 37.5 plus 25.5. So we just got recently the 2024 assessed values, and the district has grown, very strong growth in 2024, 14%, a little bit over 14% actually in 24. So continue to be strong growth of the assessed values in the district. We don't have the 24 single family home average AV yet, but you can see in 2023, the average was about 216,000. So if we're talking about tax rates and a $60 tax rate,
for per $100,000 of assessed valuation, a single family home with an average AV of about 217,000. The cost of the tax charge for that average homeowner would be about $150. So what would a 2024 bond measure look like? So I kind of alluded to it before. A unified school district like Banning is limited to a $60 tax rate per $100,000 of assessed valuation per election. And so using that $60 limit produces about 79.2 million for the district. And we kind of broke this up a couple in 2 ways. We were looking at 3 bond series issued 3 years apart. And of course, this is just the base case. This can change, and we'll discuss that when we get there in next year, if the board decides to move forward. But we're looking at, without the new development of the Rancho San Gorgonio area, that produces about 66.8 million. And then when you add the Rancho San Gorgonio area, assuming about 220 houses in development annually, that adds about 12.4 million. So then your total ends up being about 79.2 million. That's about a 26.4 million bond issue per series. Again, 3 series, 3 years apart. So if we're looking at the projection of tax rates going forward, the blue being your prior authorizations, what the bonds have already been issued, and you can see that drops off a little bit starting in 2028, and then a good drop off again in 2032 as those bonds start to get repaid. And then the $60 new tax rate from the 2024 election there in the orange on top. So if we talk a little bit about the voter demographics in Banning, over the last 20+ years of Prop 39 elections, we found that high turnout helps districts pass bond elections. What those high turnouts in elections are the presidential elections. And the bright blue, November 2016, November 2020 are the presidential elections. And this is the chart on the left, the voter turnout for Riverside County. And you can see it's very evident, presidential elections for those two elections, 75% in 2016, over 80% in 2020. We compare that to the primary elections, the lighter gray, between 30 and 40% turnout. So really important for if Banning gets on the ballot to be on a presidential election, because high turnout means you're bringing out those younger voters and those not to state voters out to these elections, and those are the ones that are less likely to vote in other. So the presidential election is the election that Banning should be on if you move forward with the bond election. Okay. And so lastly, this is a tentative November 2024 election timeline. Should the board tonight provide direction to move forward with the survey, we would start drafting the survey questions. We'd conduct the survey between now and January. We then look to present those survey results between December and February. And then at that time, anytime after that, the district can start communicating with the voters and educating the voters about what has been achieved with Measure M, and then any future needs looking forward. And that can happen between January and June. We'd look to finalize project lists and bond amounts in February and March, draft about language and legal documents in March, April, and then bring them back to the board in May. Now you can see that the deadline to file the resolution with the county isn't until August 9th. So we built in a couple of months of cushion for 2 reasons, in case there's a delay in any of the above. And the second reason is if the district establishes a citizens committee to advocate for the bonds, and they have time to get themselves established, to do a little bit of fundraising and start communicating with voters. So that's the schedule that we presented here. And as I promised, that was quick. And I have to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bobby. And the idea here is to leverage the financial ability through a geo bond for the district to secure these dollars to continue to work on our facilities. And it's no secret that we have a lot of work to do. And so today's presentation is to provide the information of what the general obligation bond process at a very, very high level. The next step is to go through the voter opinion survey process, which is developing a set of questions, going through the survey, getting again the sensitivity of the voters in approving a bond. And so that really is the crucial component, and figuring out where we stand as a district in getting the support of a community to then improve our school facilities, increasing overall assessed valuation as we continue to work on our facilities. So with that, are there any questions?
Aren't we already doing something with the lease back?
And so the question is about the lease-back process. That is correct. That's under a different mechanism of funding through the state. And so the governor authorized dollars specifically for the expansion of the transitional kindergarten program. That is specifically for transitional kindergarten, only for one site, and that would be adding 6 new classrooms. So completely separate from the other facilities needs that we have district-wide.
Okay, and do you know what the levy is here?
I'm sorry?
The mill levy for the homeowners?
The levy.
Tax mill.
I'll go ahead and defer over to Ms. Roberts here in terms of the information related to the current tax levy. So I don't have that number in front of me, at least presentation. Okay.
It's
Oh, as far as the levy on the assessed valuation.
that's not.
I understand the question.
Right.
Yes.
And do you know what the rate of seniors with fixed incomes is there? Do you have any idea what that is?
I do not.
Okay, I don't know exactly what that is, but there are a lot of seniors here on fixed income. The mill levy for Banning right now is extremely high. It's about 0.23 above or 0.21 above other areas. I'm not sure what it is for Beaumont, but I know in Banning it's extremely high.
And it is a lot higher because of the community funded districts that they've created, which is a metal roofs tax. And so the assessed valuation tax on the home is roughly about 2.4%, about 1% higher than it is currently banning. And I believe in terms of just syntax, right, and identification of these taxes, these supplemental taxes, what you're referring to in terms of the additional taxes on the assessed valuation.
Well, the Melrose is a completely different situation. The Melrose does not apply to every home in Beaumont. It only applies to which I don't know if that's going to change, but it only applies to, and it applies in different
areas,
amounts for different areas, and actually whatever the buyer does. So the Melrose is a completely different situation. It has nothing to do with the property tax, that it does impact what they pay, but it's for roads and the development of their own development. So that's a different situation, but I'm talking about the taxes for hospitalization or taxes for for outside roads and all of that. I don't know what that particular tax is in Beaumont, but I do know that in Bailey, it's very high. It's higher than, I'm not going to say any place else in Riverside County, but it's pretty high. So I'm just kind of wondering, you're looking at what's happening with income, and I know that the rate of income is not as high for increases for seniors as it is for other people. So I don't know, what the feedback would be, but I'm going to say that the taxes are extremely high here.
And thank you very much for the comment and the point of clarification. I did overgeneralize some other rules. It is specific to those particular developments. Given that Beaumont's growth has been mostly in new development, the general assumption is that the tax rate is about 1% higher than it is here at Banning. And so if we look at slide number 5, we do have some bonds that will be expiring in about the next 10 years. And so what that means is that it does lessen the burden on the taxpayer as those obligations are retiring. But to your point, yes, there's additional supplemental taxes that are included. The hospital is one of them. I think there was some kind of infrastructure for the water and sewage lines as well. And of course, we do have 3 outstanding bonds right now for the school district. The latest one was for the Performing Arts Center and the Career Technical Education buildings here at Banning High School, the city that we're in. And so again, this is the first step in moving forward with the voter opinion server to gather that information, get a sensitivity as to where we're at as a community. And as far as next steps, we're then bringing all that information, relying on our financial advisors to help us navigate through the intricacies of this very complicated and robust financial instrument.
Questions? Thank you. Thank you. Item 6.1, public hearing, sufficiency of standards, aligned textbooks and instructional materials. The Board of Trustees will now conduct a public hearing on the sufficiency of standards, aligned textbooks and instructional materials. The hearing is now open. The time is 7:58. At this time, were there any other comments received regarding items? No comments were received. Is there anyone here that wants to make a comment? Hearing that there is no comment, I declare the public hearing is now closed. The time is 7:59 p.m. Item 6.2, resolution 24-006, the sufficiency of standards aligned textbooks and instructional materials. This item is for the board to adopt resolution number 24-006, sufficiency of standards aligned textbooks and instructional materials as provided. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Okay, is there a motion second? Oh, I'm sorry. So is there a motion and second to open and discuss item 6.2?
I move to open and discuss.
A second. Okay, now is there any discussion or questions on this item? Hearing none. I have a motion from Ms. Ruiz and a second from Ms. Chalmers to approve item 6.2. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Aye. No. Item 6.3, resolution number 24-007, September 2023 attendance score. This item is for the board to adopt resolution number 24-007, proclamation of September 2023 as attendance score. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 6.3?
I move to open and discuss.
Okay. Any discussion or question? I have a motion from Ms. Ruiz and a second from Ms. Martinez Rivas to approve item 6.1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 6.4, safety protocol presentation. At this time, we invite Dr. Patty Bush and Dr. Mr. Shilbrook to speak on district safety protocols.
Good evening, kids.
for President. Board Superintendent Davis, community. We are going to talk a bit about safety protocols here at the school district. Go to the next slide. So there have been many concerns as it relates to extreme weather. Banning is not like many other communities in terms of being in an area geographically that is impacted by extreme weather. And so one of the main questions has to do with what should states do dangerous weather, or what is the current practice. And for the most part in recent years, this has been something that school sites have typically had jurisdiction over, just in terms of looking at things that they've placed in their comprehensive safe schools plans, and in terms of really trying to make sure that whatever needs to be done to protect students has been done. And so for the most part, it has been something that has virtually been overseen by school sites. I'm looking forward, Mr. Schiller, share some information with you. We realize this is something that does need to be led at the district level. Mr. Schiller will share with you some of the resources that I'm looking at.
Thank you. You go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so just to go back to what Dr. Cousinbush was saying here, previous protocols lie with individual sites. What we're looking to do is really consolidate what the sites were doing and have it managed from a centralized district center, right? And then have it be a district-led policy going forward here. So really what we're trying to do are to use reputable resources to one, identify dangerous conditions. So we're talking about heat specifically, air quality specifically, in this case here. I know that's been a point of concern being in the summer months here and continuing to be pretty warm. So really what you see here is an example of a tool that's put together by the National Weather Service. And really what is established here is a color code that helps differentiate level of severity of weather and air quality conditions. Yellow being the most mild, magenta being the most severe. And really what we're trying to do is utilize tools such as this to one, accurately gauge kind of where we are, what kind of conditions our students and staff are experiencing at individual sites. And then to use that information, if you're going to the next slide here, to react to it. All right, so what we have here is a tool developed by the California Department of Public Health to use that color code that's identified by the National Weather Service and give us a set of response protocols so we can respond appropriately given the conditions that individual schools are facing and our staff and students are experiencing. So again, this is it's a universal, unified system here. It's nice too, being in a community where the majority of our sites are located fairly close together, where it's going to be much easier for us to respond moving forward in this matter. Beyond that as well, sports, we've had some people speak about sports in the district as well. And obviously heat impacts the athletes that we have here in our community and throughout the district as well. And really what we're looking to do is be smarter, right? Be proactive in our responses to some of these concerns that we have here. And part of that is really just developing systems, again, led by the district in this case here, to be smarter about the practices we have and making sure that we're taking the necessary steps to keep everybody safe and react accordingly given the conditions that we're facing at that given time. So I'll go ahead and back to Dr. Cousins. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for doing this. I do have a question about the air quality though. I know that this addresses the heat, but I know that there's also an air quality index, marker index. Are we using that as well? Because students going out that have any kind of pulmonary or lung issues could also be at risk, even if it's cool enough? So are we looking at those those markers?
Absolutely. This was just an example of some of the tools that we could utilize to identify and respond to these conditions. So absolutely. Temperature is tied to air quality oftentimes as well. But like you mentioned, it's not, they don't always go hand in hand, right? You can have poor air quality, especially for sensitive groups that need to be addressed. Absolutely. Again, this was just an example so you can see what the approach is moving forward, and just to be smarter in our approach, in our reaction.
So will you be giving the heat and the air quality to PE teachers or to coaches or, because I know that this summer with all the fires and everything, that our air quality actually went into the hundreds as far as poor air quality. And I think healthy is about 50 to maybe the high 60 or something like that.
Absolutely, to answer your question here. The idea here is that we're leveraging resources from multiple departments at the district office here. So it's a concerted effort. So the idea that we have here would be kind of a collaborative effort between our student services, between safety and our communications department as well. So yes, to answer your question, the idea here is to make sure that we have a systematic approach that's universal to each site, and that we're being proactive in sharing this information with all of our staff so we can react accordingly. Because it's going to take a group effort to make sure that these protocols are being carried out effectively in the individual sites. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Just to add as well here, talk a lot about systems, right? That's been a point of multiple conversations throughout these last few months. I've spoken in the past about the utilization of hour0 of our universal platform that we're using to manage all of our kind of standard operating procedures regarding safety. And this is certainly something that would live in that platform as well. So again, it's really just to make it easier for everybody to access and make sure that everybody is connected moving forward.
I do have a few questions. I would like to know more details as to what sites specifically do. If it is a certain extreme temperature, heat wise, or cold. What's the cutoff to having students not go outdoors? And how do you measure that at each site level if, for the most part, everyone's working indoors, and it's recess? And also I would like to know how sites communicate to extracurricular programs like Kicks to Learn to inform them of what the protocol is, because I've experienced as a parent that the children it's literally snowing. And the Kicks to Learn, they have them out there, and it's a daughter's picture, and we're very, very cold. They're warm when we go. And it was, and they were outdoors, and they weren't removed to get their job. And these are good kids.
So to answer your question, what are individual sites doing? The reality of the situation is that you probably have 7 to 8 different protocols. As we discussed before, a lot of these protocols were operated by individual sites. So that's really, that's the main concern that we're looking to address by taking this and unifying it at the district level to make sure that we don't have issues like that moving forward. And communication is the most important component of that, right? You had mentioned needing to make sure we're responding accordingly based on the conditions that are present. So it will be a work in progress for us. But again, unifying the system is going to make that easier for us moving forward and make sure that it's much more methodical in that approach as well. But again, to answer your question, it's a work in progress, absolutely.
So what can parents expect from their school site in regards to communicating with the family as well regarding these conditions.
And so one of the things we are working on again in terms of looking at standardization of procedures is that we would like to be able to share that with sites using the platform that we have for safe schools plans to be housed at zero access to be able to have consistency. And this is also why we talked about it's a joint effort between student services, our district safety officer, coordinator, Mr. Shora, as well as communications coordinator in terms of consistent communication. And so if there's information that we receive in terms of possibly using some of the tools Mr. Shora just shared, it could be other sources as well from that county. We can be on the same page in terms of communicating to the sites of what information goes out. And in terms of how that's communicated to parents, the idea is that it is the same communication, whether that is something sent from the district via our website and or on each school site's website as well. So that the information would be consistent, but we would absolutely want which should be our website and its capabilities in terms of communicating information out.
Are there currently limitations on, is there anything set in place at the moment? A certain temperature degree where if it's too hot, like over a certain degree, then teachers say, you know what, it's too hot, let's bring them in. Do we have anything in place right now? Because I know, I picked up my daughter from school the other day. She was absolutely dripping sweat. She was red. I thought she was gonna pass out. She's like, Mom, I need some water. And I had water, but I was like, my God, you know, like you were running in this heat, really? She's like, yeah, we had to. Okay, and I was a little surprised and taken aback by that because it was very hot out, and I thought, oh, okay, they're really having to run in this heat, you know. I'm just wondering if there's anything currently in place for anything over a certain degree that the teachers bring them in.
So again, that system is specific currently to each individual site. So moving forward and I understand the concern, right, having certain actions related to degree markers. The tool that was shown to you guys that you have in front of you goes a bit beyond that. I think it's a bit more inclusive because it's going to factor in things beyond temperature, because we know 103 degrees with no humidity feels very different than 3 degrees with higher humidity, or when you factor in air quality concerns as well, right? It just magnifies the issues. So again, moving forward, it's working smarter in this system as well, and making sure we're leveraging tools like Dr. Kazi Bush mentioned to be educated and respond to our cause moving forward.
Thank you.
Do you have a deadline when this is going to take place?
So we're moving as fast as we can on this right now.
Month, 2 weeks?
So
just so specifically answer some of the questions, is that whatever we say to you right now in terms of sites are doing, we may not be accurate, so we're not going to say a particular temperature, but as an average, but I can ensure this is what has been happening. About 100 degrees is a marker to say, hey, we need to keep students in, they need to be in the shade or so forth. And our understanding is that site administrators have done that in the past, and that has been a part of their practice. But moving forward is who looks at this data and information to then send out the communication, so that can happen tomorrow. That doesn't need to be like time to get it done now. It may take time to refine the process, but this can happen tomorrow. Looking at the data, looking at the information, and communicating to sites.
Any other questions or comments? Item 6.5, business services 2022-23 unaudited actuals financial. That's. We can do the actual expenditure. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 6.5?
I second.
Any discussion or question? Mr. Herrera, are you going to present?
Yes, I will be presenting. Yes, I will be presenting the audited actions for the 22-23 fiscal year. And good evening again, board members, this cabinet leadership team, and the Valley Unified School District community here in person and joining us virtually. And so this is the most exciting time of the year for the Fiscal Services Department as we button up the fiscal year from 22-23. And moving on to the next slide before that, I just do want to thank all of our partners here in education services, human resources, obviously the team in fiscal services as well, maintenance operations. It really does take the entire district organization leaders and all support staff. And this is a culmination of the hard work. And so moving on, I do want to go over some of the basic requirements for audited actuals. These are expenditures due June 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. Are recommended for approval by the Board of Trustees by September 15th. And the unaudited actuals ending balance in turn becomes our beginning fund balance for our live budget. So if you recall, I have a slide here on the budget cycle. In June, it was recommended for approval. We have an adopted budget, although that had an estimated beginning fund balance, and that fund balance since then has changed. We'll go through some of those details in just a second. Another important item to highlight is that the audited actuals are just that, they're unaudited. We have the district external auditors coming on site in the next couple of weeks. And they'll be reviewing the financial reports. They'll also be reviewing some internal practices, the controls, internal controls as well. Also state compliancing and validating the financial position of the district and doing some conversions on the governmental side of reporting as well. That report will be submitted to the state controllers in December and also in January to the Board of Trustees. I'd like to bring the budget cycle diagram, and I'd like to read it like a clock here. So we're currently at the 2 o'clock hour, where we are approving or making a recommendation for the approval of prior year's audited actuals. One thing to highlight, and I will continue to say actuals quite a bit, so bear with me here, that this is the only report that's looking at the past. It is a matter of fact. The budget, proposed budget, preliminary budgets, interim reports that will be coming up fairly soon. Those are all based on an assumption of projections. They're where we think we're going to land versus where we actually land. Now I'll hand it over to Director of Fiscal Services, Mr. Eddie Roberts, to go through some of the details of the general fund.
Good evening, Board President Anguiano, Board Clerk Trump, esteemed Board of Trustees, Superintendent Davis, and the Bannon community. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Fund 01 report on slide number 4. So the Fund 01 report reflects the district's general fund. Over on the left, we have the revenues. Right below, we have expenditures. Now, in the middle column, we have the unaudited actuals. So as Mr. Herrera stated, the Fiscal Services Department will take a look at all of the revenues and expenditures as they actually occurred. Now, over on the right, we have the budget, and it just shows us a comparison of what occurred in the prior year versus what we expect to occur in the new year. Now, when we calculate this fund form, we take the amount of revenues, we deduct out the expenditures, that's all of our accounts payable, payroll expenses, and then we arrive at the net increase or decrease to the fund balance. We then add in our beginning fund balance to arrive at the ending fund balance. So if we think about it as the district's checkbook, we take how much was our deposits, that's our revenues. Then we back out how many checks we wrote. And then we say, what did we start the year at? What was our dollar amount? That's our beginning fund balance. And then we arrive at our ending fund balance on the right-hand side. We then would look at our components and restricted assignment with the fund balance, and then we arrive at the reserve for economic uncertainty. So let's take a closer look at the revenues and expenditures. On the left-hand side, we have four major sources that make up the general fund revenues. That includes our local control funding formula, totaling 62 million. The federal sources, which is 9.5 million. State sources, which is 18.7, and local sources of revenues totaling 5.4. I know I'm abbreviating those numbers a little bit, but on the local, it's 5,428,463. Total revenues for the 22-23 fiscal year was 96,251,649. Now, over on the right-hand side, we have the expenditures. Certificated salaries at the top at 30 million. Classified salaries at 11.3 million. Have benefits, book supplies, operations and services, capital outlay, with a total of expenditures totaling 78.4 million. Some of the highlights or things to point out include 18.6 of those revenues were one-time expenditures. So they're restricted in nature and they are one-time. Now, right below that, we have 6.2 million in one-time expenditures. So we received 18 and we spent 6.2 of those one-time funds, which they roll over into the following year, and we'll continue to spend those down. Now, one of the things I'd like to mention is that the combination of the certificated salaries, classified salaries, as well as employee benefits compared to last year, it increased from 72% to 77%. So this goes in alignment with the district being competitive, giving those salary increases to staff. The salaries and benefits are increasing and they're reflected here. Now, compared to 3 years back, the salaries and benefits, when we exclude those one-time funds because they're one-time in nature, we were at about 73% salaries and benefits in the general fund. Now we're at 85% when you take out those one-time funds. So I think it's significant to note that. Dig a little into the estimated actuals versus unaudited actuals comparison, and hand that over to Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos, and I would like to highlight the district efforts by way of the board's direction and our focus to really take care of people, be competitive in our salaries, and this figure from 73-78% all the way up to 85% of our total expenditures is spent on people, salaries, and benefits. We've made a long way here in terms of progress when it comes to taking care of the staff that take care of their students. So moving forward into the comparison of estimated actuals, which were brought forth to the board in June, and our current unaudited actuals. And this comparison, which is very interesting, doesn't exist in the current state format. And so that's why it is a supplemental calculation here, comparing where we thought we were going to end in June to where we actually ended in August here. And so this is a combined general fund balances and reserves. We have here revenues, and won't go through every single figure. Do want to redirect you to the difference column. So it's A minus B, or estimated actual versus unaudited actuals. And we do have quite a few fluctuations in large dollar amounts. In revenues, it's 7.7 million, 7.8. In expenditures and transfers, it's 5.6. And that net effect is an increase to the fund balance of 13.4 million. However, most of that, the 13.4, which is $11.5 million, is all in restricted funding. And it's made up of mostly one-time dollars that are coming by way of the state for learning recovery as we return back to in-person instruction. Another figure to make worthy of mentioning here is also the assignments and the commitments. There's been a change of about $4.9 million, and I'll get into the details in just a second. All in all, there was an overall reduction in the reserve for economic uncertainties of $2.9 million. And I will have some more information on that because that's mostly residing in the unrestricted general fund. This is a holistic approach here to the entire general fund. unrestricted and restricted. The funding mechanisms, as we're living them now, coming back to in-person instruction, are very, very complicated. And so I'm going to try to take a very simple approach into explaining some of these differences. And it is very involved, and one of the toughest jobs, and it's also part of the narrative, not on the presentation today, that we're currently working with about 25 different resources that have been developed in the last 3 years or so. That is additional funding that are specific to certain types of initiatives, and it does require a high degree of tracking, and most of it resides in the restricted general fund. The fiscal department primarily focuses on the unrestricted general fund, and we've made a lot of progress in improving our internal controls, doing budget reviews, making sure that we're improving our precision controls as well. However, there's a lot of work that we have to do on the restricted general side of the general fund. But without the narrative there, just wanted to point out that the reserve for economic uncertainties still is over that 10% reserve cap. The requirement is really only for the budget and interim reporting. So what this is saying here is that we do have an access of that 10% reserve in terms of our economic uncertainties balance there. So now we focus on the crucial component of the general fund, which is the unrestricted side, and that is on slide number 7. And so this is really a litmus test as to the financial viability of the district. So let me take you back to June. There was a reduction of expenditures that was included in projections at an estimated of $3.4 million, and that was as a result of vacancies. And so the district, the fiscal department were prudent in a sense of recognizing that we were going to have savings due to some of the challenges we've had with staffing, ultimately impacting students, and we're well aware of what that means. And I know the Human Resources Department has been working on trying to attract talent. Also, we've been working, as I mentioned earlier, on being competitive in terms of salaries. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go through the explanation and come back full circle here and make a point to that. But if again, when we look at the unrestricted general fund and look at that difference column, which is taking the difference of the estimated actuals minus the unaudited actuals, we have about $900,000 decrease in revenues. It's great news. We have about $2 million decrease in expenditures. Also great news. That should, in effect, create a net increase to the fund balance of about $3 million. But what you don't see here, and as part of the arithmetic here, is that there was an unexpected change in overall expenditures and revenues, an amount of $1 million in special education. And so that is something that I know we've been working on with our partners at the South Branch, trying to determine some of the changes in the funding structure as it relates to some of the services that have been shifted over, regionalized services to the district. Who's paying for those costs? Also, there's the revisions in the special ed funding. And as most of us may know, special ed funding has been unfunded for forever, meaning that there is an obligation of the unrestricted general fund to support the program due to the fact that it's underfunded statewide. And so moving on to then the figure there in assignments and commitments, we do see a change of about $4.9 million. The majority of that is due to supplemental concentration funding, because yet again, we are faced with many changes in terms of how we're tracking supplemental concentration funding, part of the LCAP and the local control funding formula. It is shifted from, oh, I'm sorry.
I just have one question. I don't want to go on, but on special ed, I know that right now, that through California School Board Association, that they are doing some petitioning in the assembly. Is there anything that we can do as far, like as a board, to maybe voice our opinions about the underfunding of special ed, considering that we have so many more students?
That is a great question. I think that's a question that many boards have been asking each other as far as board members, also the school district administration. Every year there is some initiative to increase special ed funding, whether it be at the state level, at the federal level. I know there's quite a few initiatives currently on the table right now in the pipeline. As a board member, I would recommend possibly as an individual, maybe to reach out to 70 persons or anyone at the state level to continue to promote the need for special ed funding. As far as a board collectively, that would have to be a conversation with Mr. Davis in terms of how to then bring that awareness to the underfunded special ed program. And so just going back to the assignments and the commitments, highlighting that supplemental concentration funding, the LCAP has shifted quite a bit. What used to be known as unrestricted funding, right? There was these categorical programs about almost 10 years ago. There was revenue limits, and all kind of just got pulled together. It became the local control funding formula in 2013. Became very flexible. However, we're now seeing a shift at the state level and overall compliance and accountability requirements, and it's a lot more restrictive. So we're having to track these dollars, and the district has been tracking those dollars for about 3 years. And so currently we're looking at almost a $4 million carryover supplemental concentration that is intended for increased and improved services. And so I'll go through some of those details in just a second here. What this means, once we look at the bottom line there, we see that same figure of a negative $2.9 million. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the district missed its mark by $2.9 million. This is what accounts for the majority of that 2.9. It's $1 million in special ed. Also, there was a transfer out from the unrestricted general fund into the deferred maintenance fund, Fund 14, to continue to fund those facility projects that are not routine in nature. These are the roofing project, these are the paint project, these are the larger projects that we have to plan for ahead of time because we know they have a large ticket item as well. And with that said, we're still meeting, we're above that 10%. That is all going to be carried forward into our first interim financial report, which is coming due in December. And that's where we really get a true picture of how we ended the year last year. We have our adopted budget that was approved in June, and then moving forward with the updated general assumptions of where we're at with enrollment, where we're at with staffing, where we at with how we settle with our labor partners, and also updated information in terms of overall projections for the current 23-24 fiscal year and 2 subsequent years. So if there is a, yes, ma'am.
My question may be simple, but my question is, does that money have to be transferred over to that other restricted fund in order to be spent in that manner?
It does not have to be transferred. However, looking at the balances that were available, looking at the reserve recognition certain calculation as it exists today, knowing that there is a 10% cap, there's a way of balancing out the unrestricted general fund overage, if you will. And so the $1.25 million that were transferred was following the pattern from last year, which is about 1.25, exact same dollar amount, and the year before that at 1.5. And this is the district's initiative to continue to work on its facilities. And so earlier we had a presentation on possibly going out for a general obligation bond. And so what the district is doing now is leveraging all its current funding that's available, maximizing those limited resources, and then really showing the community what we're doing to our facilities with the limited resources, and hopefully moving forward with securing additional funding. So to answer your question, no, it's not required. However, there is a requirement to keep our facilities in order to have an environment conducive of a safe learning environment for students.
So is the money tracked in the same way?
Absolutely.
And do we have a balance of monies that have been transferred from unrestricted to restricted funds in case they are not spent?
Yes, and so even though the majority of this presentation is focused on 101, which is known as fund, the general fund, Fund One. I do have a slide looking at our balances and all the other funds as well. So I will be going to that, and we do have that information as well. It is tracked in the same exact manner as we do with the unrestricted general fund. In the last figure that I want to put out there, because there may be a question of, well, where do we think where we're gonna land and how do we actually end the year? And it was about $600,000 away from our target. Looking at total unrestricted general funds of 52 million, that is roughly about 1.3% variance factor here in our projections. Another.
Sorry, I have a question.
Absolutely.
So what's our reserve total again?
The reserve total for closing of the 22-23 fiscal year is $9.5 million.
And that's the 12%.
That is actually exactly 12% of total expenditure.
What's the minimum reserve that we could have?
The minimum reserve is 4.5, so looking at this, it's roughly about $3.5 million.
So why do we have more than that?
At this point, this is the balances that are carried over here. Also, we have reserve for economic uncertainties and a budget projections of about a very similar amount, anywhere from $7 to about $10 million. And when we think about the reserve for economic uncertainties, it's just for that, for any uncertainty. And so currently we are paying about $5 million in payroll each month. And the general principle is to have at least 2 months of operating expenditures in reserve, which is roughly about $10 million. That's just salaries and benefits. That's not even keeping the lights on or paying for our utilities. When we account for that, it's roughly looking at about $11 million in reserves.
So how much of this have we touched? Of like when under it, tap into it, like how often or how much have we tapped into it? I mean, has it? I mean, it looks like it's increasing versus decreasing. Or what is the estimate then for the 2023-24 for the reserve?
So in the 22-24 reserve for economic expenses, that's the same information that was presented back in June. Can go ahead and give you that figure in just a second here. That made $8.9 million. So we're currently at 9.5. We're projecting that our reserve for next year, or excuse me, the current year, and I apologize because I keep on jumping fiscal years right now. It is a difference of about $600,000. And so to answer your question about how we dipped into our reserves, we haven't dipped into our reserves at least in the last 3 fiscal years. There are projections.
Use that one for other things that our students need.
And I believe that currently we've been addressing our student needs to other resources. And so we are leveraging our restricted dollars as much as possible. The rule of thumb is using our more restricted dollar first. What's happened as a result of the pandemic is one, decrease in expenditures because we were in a school or in person rather for quite some time. Also, there is the additional funding with additional requirements, and so leveraging those dollars to help supplement our programs. And so what has allowed the district is to create a very healthy reserve. However, even though we haven't dipped into our fund balances yet, we are looking at having to depend on our fund balance moving forward in the next 2 subsequent years due to the fact of the increase in our labor cost.
Staff, I've been ordered dip into it, but you're saying it's 2 to 3 years. Like I feel like it's just the story just keeps.
I don't believe I've shared that there's been any in the red conversation. We haven't been deficit spending. At this point, we're still not deficit spending. However, as presented to the board back in June, there are projections once we finish our settlement negotiations with our labor partners that there will be a projected net excess of expenditures over revenues, meaning that we will not be getting enough money to take care of our obligations as a district. And so that means that we're going to be dipping into our reserves. And part of the biggest issue with that is that currently we have a decrease of average daily attendance from 93 to 90%, which is the equivalent of about $5.2 million. Once we take care of our attendance we will be in a place where we don't have to worry about having a reserve for these economic uncertainties. And that's holding all things constant, meaning the economy being constant and being funded at the current levels that are being projected.
Sorry, clarifying question.
Absolutely.
Did you say salaries are $5 million a month?
The estimated cost for salaries is approximately $5 million in cash a month.
That's a lot of money.
I'm sorry?
But didn't it say that the total for salaries was 30 million for the year? And please forgive me, it's been a long day, a little tired, just clarifying.
Yes, so 30 million for certificated, it's 11 million for classified, 19 million for employee benefits. That is approximately 61.3 million. 5 times 12 is 16 million. It's a combination of salaries and benefits. The cost of an employee is not just the salary, it's also the statutory requirements, required benefits, which includes STIRS, PERS, state unemployment insurance, workers' comp, other post-employment benefits. Also, health and welfare is a huge cost to the district as well.
So if we can't use one-time funding like ESSER funds for salaries, but we've been receiving funding in order to fund the raises that we just gave your labor partners, how are we not gonna receive that funding this year and following year to still fund that?
If I think I understood the question, are we using one-time funds to fund salary
We're
increases?
allowed to use those.
Correct.
So you're saying that we have 18 million, right? And we're saying that we're down each year because it carries over.
Correct.
So are you saying that we're not going to be receiving funding that we typically get annually to fund our salaries and benefits?
What he's saying is that your expenditures are gonna be more than what you're receiving.
That's what I'm asking. So you're telling us that the amount of money that's going to be coming in this year and next year are not even going to cover salaries and benefits that were just bargained and agreed.
And so part of the conversation, so there's multiple layers, so let me take a quick pause here. And so let's leave one-time funding out of the conversation for now, because we're not funding any of the increases to these one-time dollars. So just wanted to go ahead and clarify that. And so what we've negotiated has been an 8% increase for our labor partners. And so what that has created is a deficit in our budget, which was presented back in June. And the main reason for that deficit is because our average daily attendance has decreased by about 3%. And so in effect, yes, to reiterate and go back to your question, is that we are looking at a 3-year projection where we do see that our revenues are going to be less than our total expenditures. Now, there's other expenditures that are part of the general fund as well, that only accounts for about 15% of total expenditures.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we're working on our attendance
Yes.
to go up.
Correct.
So when are you gonna take into account those changes? Or wouldn't that help us so that we can use some of the other fee?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what would be possibly a good thing to do is look at the slide that is currently on the projector. Slide number 8 is looking at our commitments and our assignments. This is a couple of things that keep me up at night sometimes. I'm trying to figure out the very involved financial structure that we're currently living in public education. And so we talked about almost $4 million of supplemental concentration in terms of commitments. There's a few other initiatives there as well. We're expecting expenditures for technology infrastructure, textbook.
Interruption. I need to understand. I'm trying to understand why, if we're saying we're not going to have enough funding to cover our employees' salaries and benefits, why are we moving money from unrestricted to restricted? using restricted funds.
I understand. Because that was the availability of funds for closing of the 22-23 fiscal year. So part of what's a little bit confusing, and I have to work with Eddie and check each other on this, is that it's a point in time. So when we do the adopted budget, we haven't closed the books just yet. We think we're gonna land at X. We landed at Y, and so that gave us the ability to be able to continue to fund some of our facilities projects. So a savings, so just bringing it to an individual context, if I make $1,000 a year, excuse me, $1,000 a month, and I spend $900 in that month, I have $100. That could only support $100 could be supported for one-time type of things, right? I want to buy a perfume that month, then I can afford that. But if it's an ongoing cost, then I wouldn't be able to support that cost moving forward if I don't have the means. And so in this case, that transfer out to Fund 14 of $1.25 million is one-time in nature. It was given the availability within the ending fund balance to go ahead and move those funds over to Fund 14 and dedicated to making sure that we have a conducive learning environment for students. And I'm hoping that answered the question. You know, okay.
Even looking at the unaudited actuals that you gave us, it was, and maybe you're talking about a separate thing right now, but it was $8 million that was transferred from unrestricted to restricted.
Okay, and thank you very much for the clarifying question. So the $8 million is not a transfer out. So the total $8 million that we see in the unaudited actual, which is exactly 8.7, 7.5 are contributions that are going into special education and are going into the routine restricted maintenance accounts. Those are obligations that are required by the unrestricted general fund into the restricted side. And if we look at that same line item in the Form 01,
Is that?
that was page 1 of Form 01. So it'll be, if it's the actual binder, it'll be the second section here after the narrative. I'm looking at the actual report.
So which line are you looking at referring to the $8 million?
So if we're looking at Form 01 and we're looking at the expenditures by object, I'm looking at the left-hand side columns there, section E, right at the middle there of the page. Right above that, there is a line item number 4, total other financing sources and uses.
Right here. So it decreases for next year.
It does decrease for next year because at that point, we went ahead and developed a budget in June with the set of assumptions that we had in June. Now that we close the books, have an idea as to where we're at in terms of actual revenues coming in for special education. That is what is accounting for roughly the $1 million swing there that we see in total transfers out. Also, the difference there from 8.7 to 7.5 is the 1.25 million, and only $1.25 million are being transferred out of the unrestricted general fund into Fund 14.
And the rest is being transferred where?
I'm sorry?
The rest is being transferred where? To fund sped?
There's been a contribution, so there was roughly, I have to go back to my notes, I believe it was a $4 million contribution, excuse me, a $2.9 million contribution into restricted maintenance, and roughly about a $5 million contribution into the special ed program. So in other words, it's not a transfer out of the general fund, it's a transfer within the general fund. It's just from the unrestricted side to the restricted side. And this is because special ed and the routine restricted maintenance account, they're unfunded, meaning that it's an obligation of the unrestricted general fund to support those programs.
But it could be paid from the unrestricted fund side.
It is being paid from the unrestricted fund side.
But can it, is that, or are you asking, is that?
Wait, on the paper, it looks like the monies were moved from unrestricted to restricted.
Correct.
But is that necessary?
Restricted
Can it
to
just be paid straight from restricted?
It cannot. And the reason for that is that when we track expenditures, we track them at the resource level. And we have resource 6500, which is 8602 for special education. We had a negative of set amount. It's roughly about $5 million. And we have to balance out that resource and bring in the funds from the unrestricted side to the restricted special ed program. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to close the books. It creates what is known as a fatal error in the state software. And that's why we see that transaction. Generally, this is a net zero transaction from unrestricted to restricted. Usually doesn't really bring up any flags. The only thing that's different this time around for audited actions, and it's been done for the last 3 years now with this year, is a transfer out into Fund 14 to continue to support our facilities. And it is on PDF page 19. That will be section D, line item number 4. And if it's on the printed version of the binder, it is after the first divider that says Form 01, Fund 1, General Fund.
Why? If unrestricted funds can be spent on anything.
Except restricted.
So I think what's happened in this presentation is a lot of components. There's been a lot of conversation about the components, and there isn't a nexus between what's being articulated and the questions. Very complex, but I think one of the last questions is why would we take unrestricted dollars and put that into the restricted account to pay for a restricted expenditure versus just paying for the expenditure, let's call it special education, with unrestricted dollars? Why couldn't we just, that's just one piece.
And so even to answer the question, I apologize if the intricacies of my world are not being shifted into a way that I can easily explain it. So I deeply apologize for that. So the reason for that is that the California School Accounting Manual requires us to track those expenditures in that particular resource, meaning that we do not shift over expenditures to the unrestricted side and track them here when they actually belong on the restricted side when it's specifically for special ed. What that does, it creates the effect of not capturing the true cost of the program. And so this is something that is a standard practice, and it's just being able to isolate those expenditures and say at the end of the year, how much more did the special ed program require from the unrestricted general fund in order to keep its operations at a net zero, meaning that we didn't receive about $5 million in revenues for special ed that are required to fund the program.
So is it possible for us to see those specific expenditures?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's tracking it
Yes, it's a tracking mechanism.
to show where it comes from, but is it clear in the documents that this additional money from unrestricted came from unrestricted to pay for the restricted expenditure?
That is correct, and that is line item 4, excuse me, D4, indicating that we see a negative 8.7 and a positive 7.5 in the general fund. And so I'll be more than happy to go through the details of these special ed expenditures, also the contribution and what makes up the deficit. I don't like saying the word deficit when it comes to the special ed program. It's not an encroachment either. That's also a word with a negative connotation. It is a contribution that's necessary to support the services of a special ed population.
We don't want to.
No, I, please don't misunderstand me. I understand how banking works. I know about moving money from your savings account to your checking account to pay bills. My question is, does it have to be moved? If I have the money in my checking account, why do I have to move more money from my savings account into my checking account to pay it?
because it is an accounting requirement.
Can I just say? There are certain, no, I'm just gonna, actually, there are certain things that are required by the state of California. And special ed is one of those that is required that we're not getting the amount of funding. That's why I was asking about the assembly, to put pressure on. We're not getting that amount of funding. So where's that funding gonna come from? It is restricted. We can't, if we had enough money, we wouldn't be able to use it for anything else. But because we don't have enough money, we have to take that money from the general fund and put it in there to show them this is what we're spending it on.
I understand that. My question is, why can't it be shown coming from the unrestricted side?
It
So
is
that
going to
can
be shown coming from the unrestricted once it's paid. Once we have to pay it out, it will be.
That's all I'm asking for, is if we can see that and see the tracking of the money.
Yeah.
Both are correct in the sense that it's not being identified as expenditures and salaries and benefits in the unrestricted side. It's only been shown as a contribution. However, when we move to the restricted side, we see it, salaries, certificate classified, benefits, materials and supplies, operational expenditures. It's just the accounting mechanism that's required in order to be able to fully close the resource.
So if you can go to slide 10 about the next step.
Absolutely. In terms of next steps, the recommendation is to approve the unaudited financial report. Audited access for 22-23. Again, these fund balances do roll over into what will become our next financial report, the first interim report in December 2023. As a reminder, these are not unaudited. We still have to go through the audit process, which is the district's external auditing firm. They'll be here in the next couple of weeks reviewing our financials, also looking at some compliance requirements. And there will be a presentation to the board by the auditors in January of 2024.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? I have a motion from Ms. Troutman and a second from Ms. Ruiz to approve item 6.5. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 6.6, business services, general. 6.0, we already did that one, sorry. 1-7, educational services. Item 7.1, educational services, student trip. Decided to board to approve the attendance of the right and scholars for 2023 school districts. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item? Any discussion or question? No. From Novella, second from Ms. Trout to approve item 7.1. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 7.2, educational services application for funding consolidated application. This item is for the board to approve the 2023-24 validated application funding. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 7.2?
Second.
Any discussion or question? Hearing none, I have a motion from Ms. Troutman and a second from Ms. Novales to approve item 7.2. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 7.3, educational services, item addendum to the LCAP. This item is for the board to the federal addendum to the LCAP. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 7.3? Second. Any discussion or question? I have a motion from Ms. Martinez Laura and a second from Ms. Troutman to approve item 7.3. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 7.4, innovation and technology services, purchase of Chromebook. This item is for the board to approve the purchase of Chromebooks to be prepared. Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 7.4?
I move to open and discuss.
A second.
Discussion or question?
Yes.
Mr. Burger, will you tell us your new findings, how it's different from this? As far as cost goes?
So yes, this is an all-encompassing purchase, white glove services, asset tagging, enrollment into the district systems. Because of the two different funding sources, the two different quotes is what altered the pricing. However, we've already had conversation with our vendors where they are going to ensure us that we will be receiving the lowest, most competitive pricing moving forward once the purchases are submitted. So the pricing is different based off of the quoting and how it's done, and the different amounts of the different quantity amounts for each of the quotes.
But it is going to be corrected.
100% going to be corrected. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. As long as they are submitted in the same time frame and they can account for it in their books that it's going to look as one large purchase from the two separate quotes, then they will be able to justify lowering the price on them based off of quantities.
Yes. Yes, okay.
Right, yes, it's broken up because of funding sources.
Right, but extra on here, as far, that's what I'm saying, exciting, so that we are not paying extra. Even though we are paying different funding sources. And then can you just give us a real brief rundown of what the white glove is going to consist of?
So white glove services, what we're one area we're ensuring is bulk packaging, environmental friendly packaging. So basically, we're not left with a lot of waste.
But we're paying extra for that.
We are paying extra for that. That is part of it. Well, actually, yes, we are paying extra for that. But it helps to eliminate the footprint, the environmental footprint on the packaging that's left over. And then what we're also included is again enrollment into our systems, Google Management Console, administrative tools, licensing, asset tagging, so that we can get them. We can take basically they will hand us over whether soft copy, hard copy of the asset tags, manufacturers, dates of enrollment, and we can get that imported into our inventory tracking system.
Isn't it?
There is, we also incorporated a 4-year warranty on the devices. It does cover accidental break. However, there are some limitations to the accidental break.
That's good. I have a motion. Are there any other questions? Yes.
The Chromebooks that we are buying are to replace our students' Chromebooks?
So we're actually doing again, my arrival, as you're well aware, I'm on my 5th week here. In cabinet, extended cabinet has been doing everything in their power, of course, to backfill with all of that. And we have to have these devices, we have to have these funds encumbered. So we have to move quickly. So moving forward, it would be best to try to provide a systematic approach to how we deploy devices. This is a dual project device, a purchase of devices. So we're actually going to be refreshing kinder, 3rd, 6th, and 9th grade student devices. And we're also at the same time going to move forward with our 2-to-1 initiative. Ideally, this isn't something we would want to do on top of each other. Ideally, this is not something we want to do in the 2nd month of school starting. But again, under the circumstances, this is where we're at and we need to move forward. So we are at the point now where we have to proceed with 2 projects. One is refreshing student devices, and 2 is again the 2-to-1 initiative. So that's where we're at with this, and that's why part of the reason why the funding sources are different. Why the domino effect on what we're doing with the 2 different projects for student devices. So in my understanding, this is a first for student devices at Banning and the 2-to-1 initiative. This is not something we've ever done before. And again, ideally, this is something we want to do in the 2nd month of the school year on top of the student device refresh, but they both have to happen.
So we are.
We're going 2-to-1, yeah.
I'm sure the parents. Them for the back of the kiddos.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The
Oh,
parents appreciate it, those backpacks stay heavy with all that extra stuff, like Chromebook and the
they
charger.
definitely get heavy. We're doing this for several reasons, and the argument actually could probably be made, we're probably at like a 3-to-1, maybe a 3.8. But we're working on starting to pull some of this back and develop the processes and improvements to our systems for a better asset tracking.
That, they were being charged $15 for the key to the, sometimes the little key kids can be sent in the room sometimes. And they were being charged $15 per key missing when they were taking the Chromebook back. Is warranty going to cover that kind of thing for this?
So it's a little difficult for me to speak on what's happened prior to my arrival here. What I can tell you is that we are working, we've already had many conversations again with cabinet, extended cabinet and beyond on working on developing accountability, working on developing an all-encompassing programming, teaching students digital citizenship, how to be responsible with their digital footprints, both in the software and hardware kind of an aspect. I can assure you from what I've seen here in the last 5 weeks, that it's not one single digit being taken off of the keyboard. It's many of them. There's a lot of, from what I've seen, there's many examples to prove why we have to have a more robust concept to accountability and digital citizenship with student devices. There's a lot of very deliberate damage that's being taken place to these devices. It's not accidental. In my 15 years of working in IT, over 15 of those years in the environment, educational environment, we have to really develop a more robust program for that accountability. But I can assure you from what I've seen, it's not one key missing off of the keyboard. It's several keys. It's everything from very deliberate damage to even some vulgarity, inappropriate behavior with some of these devices. And it's typical. This is what happens when you put them in students' hands. But we're working on improving that. And moving forward, we, as you know, Mr. Herrera here spent a lot of time on the budget. And as you see the dollar amount of what we're spending, the investment of public funds that we're using, we got to make sure we do a better job of being more responsible and paying and making sure that our students move forward and being responsible citizens themselves. So it's an all-encompassing process that we're working on developing at the moment.
I just I'm sure the kids that get those Chromebooks afterward will appreciate that, because I know, for instance, my nephew's class moved up a grade level, left Chromebooks in the classroom, and now my baby's 3rd grade class has those new Chromebooks. So taking care of them for the next set of kiddos to use them would be great.
And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to make sure that we ensure that, because there are devices that that are more than one student is touching. But with the 2-to-1 programs and with some of the other processes that we're focused on developing right now, I'm very confident that we will have a very robust process, and students will definitely be much more responsible and accountable with the district devices and district property that we're basically putting responsibility on them with. What's that? Except, yes, we're working on developing acceptable use policies, as well as a responsible use policy, which again is all encompassing. It's the acceptable use, which is basically the terms and conditions. We'd like that to tie into board policies, administrative regulations, both on the staff and student side. And then we want to also incorporate a responsible use policy, again, on the hardware side of things and the software side, to ensure that students know responsibility. Digital citizenship is the word that gets thrown around with this, and we want to tie that in, develop a curriculum behind it, so that we're teaching students what it means to be responsible with their technology, that, again, the district property that we're entrusting them with.
I just have one question. How soon is this going to happen? Get these?
Hopefully soon. The sooner we get this order in, they've assured us that inventories are there. So we're not purchasing anything that's right now being backfilled or any supply shortages at the moment. So they've told us that they have this in stock at the moment, and
they're ready to deploy. They have to go through the white glove servicing, which will definitely take time. So I'm pretty confident if we can get the quote over to them, the purchase order over to the vendor, we should be able to have these to us before the end of the school year, before the end of the calendar year, November, December type of time frame. So as long as white gloves, it is a large quantity, so there's a lot of white glove that has to take place. But I'm pretty confident we can get these here before the end of the calendar year.
To the Chromebooks with staff.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first part?
In regards to staff, what is the one with the district to ensure that our staff is safe?
So to my knowledge, our standard for staff devices is actually laptops, not Chromebooks. So that, again, my understanding, I don't know if there's where we're at with that, but my goal is definitely to develop these standards on what classroom technology looks like, what student technology, teacher technology looks like. So the laptops, teacher laptop wouldn't just be, it would be inclusive of a docking station, a hover cam, and those sorts of things. To my knowledge, there isn't a refresh cycle that currently exists. So the goal is to get one that exists so that we can maintain the life, the end of life, end of support and maintenance agreements with these laptops moving forward. Mr. Herrera has been very diligent in wanting a manifest of inventory systems and what we look like so that we know what we currently have now, so that we have an idea of how we want to spend those dollars moving forward. Again, after only being here 5 weeks, I've been able to identify several silos and breaks in our management system of inventories. And we're working again to pull that back in and try use that so that we can develop a system moving forward on what our device life cycle and refresh cycles look like for staff. So, but again, my understanding is that it's laptops currently. And my goal is to develop that teacher technology standard. So it wouldn't just be laptops. There'd be a few devices that would be incorporated, and we would want to include on those device cycles.
They can use theirs.
So in my past experiences, you handle it there's a couple of different ways. It's all about trying to identify what the best practices and best methods are. As far as having a backup of systems, you can get really expensive, and we really want to be mindful of that moving forward. As we know, during COVID, there were a lot of those one-time dollars that were used for technology. That is not happening right now. There is none of these dollars moving forward that to our knowledge, we are expecting the state or the feds to provide us. So we really got to be mindful of the current dollars. We have to be mindful of the low enrollments and all of those that impact those budgets. So providing backups of systems, and that's where digital citizenship is important. That's where the responsibility is important. But to provide backups would be a very expensive initiative for us. So with substitute devices, in my experiences, it's been best to provide the school site. So you have two different types of subs. You have your long-term and your short-term subs. So those long-term subs, you want to basically treat as a daily staff member, provide them their own device, so that they again are treated as a daily a normal staff member that's non-sub. Those substitutes that come in daily, sometimes every other week. You want to provide the school sites with a set of laptops. You basically want to you kind of want to have an algorithm that identifies how many subs is this school needing per month. And we'll do that plus say 2%, 4%, so that when the subs do come in, they have that laptop and it's that kind of checkout system that they can use while they're there covering the classroom. Yeah, unfortunately, and I wish I had better answers for you, but with my 5 weeks here and the state of the technology department prior, there's very little documentation or direction from there moving forward with these sorts of protocols. I come from an environment where these protocols help you operate on a daily. So my goal is definitely to start developing them so that one, we understand what we're doing with the staff and students, and I am able to provide you with more defined answers when we are spending this amount of public funds and asking for your approval on it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I have a motion from trustee Ruiz and trustee Gonzalez to approve item 7.4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 7.5, academics, District Williams report.
This item is for the board to accept the Williams legislature, third and fourth quarter results for 2022-23 for the Riverside County Office of Education.
Is there a motion and a second to open and discuss item 7.5? Any discussions or questions? I have a motion and a second. I have a motion from trustee Novales and a second from President Anguiano to approve item 7.5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5. Eight point one, business services, resolution number 24-008, again, limit.
This item is for the board to adopt the Gamma resolution number 24-008, establishing the maximum appropriation limitations for public agencies as adopted in Proposition 4 in November of 1979.
Is there a motion and second to open and discuss item 8.1?
I move to open and discuss.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? I have a motion from trustee Ruiz and a second from trustee Martinez Lara to approve item 8.1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-4. 8.2, business services, resolution number 24-009 regarding the education protection account.
This item is for the board to approve the annual fiscal resolution 4-009, regarding the education protection account, EPA.
Is there a motion and second to open and discuss item 8.2?
I'll move. Second.
Any discussion or questions? I have a motion from trustee Martinez Lara and a second from trustee Novales to approve item 8.2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. 8.3, business services, contractual agreements.
This item is for the board to approve and or ratify contractual agreements as recommended.
Is there a motion and second to open and discuss item 8.3?
I'll move.
Second. Any discussion or questions?
I do have a question. The question I have on the Kimberly Kennedy dual immersion talks about coaching, and I was just curious where our teachers are. I mean, we're paying, like you said, we're paying quite a few dollars for teachers, and I was kind of curious what this covers. This says dual immersion. Don't we have, where are the coaches?
And so this is designed to support dual immersion teachers in kinder, first and second grade in terms of improving writing strategies for students in lower grades. Our coaches can also be part of the training, but it is meant to increase the capacity of our dual immersion teachers as it relates to improving writing instruction for students, which is one of the areas also identified in our NCEE work as a priority.
And is this is an outside contractor, so this is not paying one of our teachers to do this.
That is correct, because it's a specific version.
Okay, and I see this is from Texas, but these people are here in California, right?
They will be here on site.
They will be on site.
Yes.
And how long could we be doing this, or we be training your teachers? I'm thinking about what Mr. Davis said about sustainability and preparing a system that and calibrating that so that we can be sustainable. So what is this something that's just this year? Is this something that's going to be an ongoing thing?
Understood. And for this particular group, this is just for this year. And as always, the goal is to build our teachers' capacity. And so at this point, is really just supporting them so that they can build their skill set. As many other consultants we've worked with, that is always the goal, to work them, excuse me for saying it this way, to work them out of the district. If we see that there's a need, it is to leverage support, build that need so that our teachers' capacity is built.
Okay, so once we do this, then we will use the NCEE benchmark collaboration to support our teachers after this.
And so we're using NCEE, that work has come out of that to direct and guide our steps. And again, as one of the was writing, this is a way to kind of begin to address that and to help our teachers build capacity. And moving forward, we would love to continue the work with our teachers directing and guiding this work themselves outside of this consultant.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? I have a motion from trustee Martinez Lara and a second from trustee Navales to approve item 8.3. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item 8.4, business services, monthly fiscal services report.
Items for the board to approve monthly fiscal services report, bank reconciliations, purchase orders, warrant summary, and commercial warrant registers.
Is there a motion and second to open and discuss item 8.4?
And to open and discuss.
Second. Any discussion or questions? I have.
No, you go ahead.
You should.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a motion from trustee Ruiz and a second from trustee Martinez Lara to approve item 8.4. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we're going to discuss this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about this? Okay, I did have some questions, and I know there was a little bit of answer at the last minute for this, but I'm still a little confused. I mean, we are spending over $1 million. Actually, it says 2 million, and for food. I'm just kind of wondering, the Domino's pizza, the 134,357 for school lunches, is that per year?
To answer that question, I'll invite Mr. Pulsifer here, and I do know that most of the purchase orders that are provided as a recommendation for approval at this point in the year is for the entire fiscal year. So Mr. Pulsifer, you may ask the question.
Yes, so the amount of Domino's Pizza is the dollar value that you stated. It's roughly 34,000.
It's for the entire year.
Mhm.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, just one more time. I have a motion from trustee Ruiz and a second from trustee Martinez Lara to approve item 8.4. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 9, board governor. 9.1 safety committee updates. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Schiller to share updates from the last safety committee meeting.
Good evening. So I just want to take a few moments to share some of the topics of conversation that we had at our last safety committee meeting, which occurred on August 30th, as well as provide you with some of the progress we have on our ongoing safety initiatives and safety initiatives that we have in development currently. Okay, so these were some of the main topics of conversation when we last met at the end of August. One of these big safety concerns that's been shared by site administration and staff and the board over these last few months is the addition of security cameras, a revamped security system, beginning with Nicollet Middle School. So we are just wrapping up the installation process of 89 brand new security cameras at the Nicollet Middle School site, as well as a brand new revamped and much more robust camera platform and software side of things. So that's phase one. We're looking at wrapping that up very soon. We've had several issues of supply chain issues. We're waiting on a few cameras, but the work is very, very nearly done. We have moving on to phase two of this planned project. We have had a company that installed the cameras in Nicollet come out and walk Banning High School, as well as Coombs Alternative Education, and provide us with quotes on a proposed project. And the plan is moving forward, obviously, as we continue to roll these out to all of our sites. Additional phases 3 and beyond, looking to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our elementary schools as well. Just so where I know we focus on the cameras oftentimes too, but a big part of this is the platform that manages the cameras. And we did make sure that we address this underlying issue as well. Essentially, we're bringing in a device that's part of the installation process at Nicollet to bring the cameras that we are using currently throughout the district and add additional features and let us be more proactive with our safety approaches on all of those campuses.
Is this in line with the new IT programs that we're doing? I mean, you're aligning this with the IT department.
In terms of
overall.
Oh, absolutely. And that was, I mean, that was a main point of concern before we adopted any project. So yes, absolutely. And Mr. Brugge has been invaluable in this process as well. IT plays a huge role in maintaining the system. So yes, the idea with this platform moving forward is we can do a lot more with it, besides adding cameras, opportunities for us to really start linking all internet-based safety devices into it, whether that's fake detectors, whether that access control to allow us to remotely access doors. It's a very robust system, but yes, to answer your question, absolutely. We also, sorry, yes, ma'am.
I know phase 3 is for the elementary side, and I have a difficult question that I know will be hard to answer. But do we have an idea of the timeline? When will be a I know, sorry, difficult.
No, it's okay. So what we wanted to do with phase 1, this is a brand new company. We haven't done any work with them in the past. We wanted to make sure that work was completed at Nicollet Middle School before we proceeded with any work. That way, if any adjustments needed to be made or there were any issues, we could address that before moving forward, not having compounding issues from site to site. I can do the quotes are in for Banning High School and Coombs. The materials are in, and the installation process at each site takes approximately 2 to 3 weeks. So, I mean, in an ideal situation, we could move relatively quickly to answer your question. I don't have a definitive date for you, unfortunately.
Ballpark.
So if we can wrap up construction of the installation process at Nicollet here by the end of the month, say within the next few weeks, best case scenario, potentially by the end, probably into the calendar year, early in the new calendar year, ideally.
Will we be doing the installation at Florida Street as well, or does that stay on Street?
So to answer your question, yes, we included Forest Street within the elementary phase of the proposed projects, yes.
Thank you.
There has been work at the high school, it's moving to the second point here, and it was addressed at the last safety committee meeting, and that's the installation of security window and door film. It's to provide that shatter resistant level of security in these key points. So Banning High School is about 90% completed, again, just like with the cameras, of course, that was some supply chain issues here with getting certain films in, we're looking at, I think, soon, again, ideally by the end of the month here. Get that project in, and again, the idea here is to move to subsequent phases and address the needs of all of our sites as well. So I actually had a company come out here and provide site walks last week for every single one of our sites. We should be getting a quote as early as tomorrow on all of those sites. And the way they set that up, it really lets us prioritize areas of need and make sure that we're addressing the high risk areas first. So again, we're looking to move on that relatively quickly as well. A big point of concern here, moving on to the third point. This was a big ask by a lot of the staff we spoke to, was training in active shooter protocols. So as we've discussed in the past, the district adopted Alice as our standard response protocols for active shooter. We're on the process of completing phase 1, which essentially it's an e-learning. It's familiarizing our staff with the protocols, the response protocols of the Alice platform. It is a prerequisite to complete that training and have that foundational knowledge before we can move on to phase 2 of the rollout of this training, which is the hands-on component here. And it's really being able to allow our staff to work out individual scenarios and circumstances here in their own workspaces.
I do have a question about what and the safety of the front entrance. Is that going to be addressed? Because that's a huge area of concern.
Absolutely, and this is not only Nicolette we're looking at, so that's looking at what we call moving to a single point of entry, right, and having better control over where we enter the campuses and where we leave the campuses. Yes, to answer your question, that has been the point of multiple conversations, both at the committee level here on multiple occasions, and also in separate groups within the district as well. So absolutely, to answer your question, yes, that is something that we're looking at as well. It is providing the necessary facilities improvements to work towards single points of entry at our schools. Yes. And lastly here, this was the kind of the last big topic that we addressed at our most recent safety committee meeting, and that is a complete refresh cycle of our emergency supplies of all sites. Again, I know the great shakeout coming. This is something that's kind of high on our priorities moving forward. So we have been working with multiple agencies, most notably Riverside County, and really providing us guidance at developing a standardized process for our emergency supplies, right? And making sure that that's a universal system that every single site adopts. So we're not dealing with issues that we talked about in the past here with having sites adopt their own standard protocols related to emergency supplies. So that's really where we are. Step 1, we have been provided with recommendations from the county. Phase 2 is obviously going to be actually executing the replenishment of these supplies. So that's something that we're working towards right now. That's in the early stages of okay. Lastly here, so we closed the last session essentially going around the room and allowing each member of the safety committee to share some of their concerns as it relates to safety in the district. And what you have here in front of you under upcoming topics are some of the key takeaways from that meeting. Most notably is reconfiguring Central Elementary's pickup and drop off. So that's going to be a main topic of conversation when we meet again here in a couple of weeks, on September 27th. And making sure that we're doing everything we can, giving our current situation here, right, current facilities, to make sure that we're doing everything we can to improve safety for students who are being picked up and dropped off at Central Elementary. Moving on here, one of our site principals, who was part of the safety committee, expressed her interest in really continuing to develop and create a standardized system for our safety protocols. As we've mentioned on multiple occasions, Hour Zero is really going to help us standardize these processes and be a lot more efficient in how we respond to emergency situations going forward here. And just like you mentioned, Mr. Wallace, physical safety improvements and initiatives are huge, right? As we're dealing with dated facilities at many of our sites. And so, yes, we have some projects that we need to develop moving forward to address those concerns, whether that includes upgraded door hardware, providing internal locking mechanisms.
So less glass in front.
I'm sorry?
I was saying less glass in the front where a shooter has an open, completely open all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, there are obviously improvements that can be made given the facilities we have, but yes, it's being more intelligent in the design moving forward as well, and making sure that we're looking through the lens of safety when we develop or refine those projects. Absolutely. Fencing has been brought up as well. That's in line with what you're talking about as well. So there's some suggestions that have been made. This is definitely a topic of conversation that will be focused, main point of focus for the safety committee moving forward. And beyond that, really making sure that we're being proactive. That may include safety screening equipment as well. I know we attended safety conference in Nevada recently as well, and you had expressed interest in looking into devices to safely screen visitors onto our campus as well. So that is definitely something that we're looking into and gathering more information on, and will be discussed moving forward here as well. Yeah, the next time we meet will be September 27th.
With Navigate 360.
Yeah, so VMA is visitor management, or VMS, visitor management system. Yeah, so it's software and hardware that we use to basically screen visitors who are coming onto our campus, right? Or getting potentially exposed to our students. Yes, to answer your question, we did. We adopted that late last year. And yes, absolutely. It's installed at every single one of our school sites, as well as our district office building, and that's what we're currently utilizing to screen our visitors. Absolutely.
He was talking about like going to.
I have a question for you, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
For the picking up over at Central Elementary, are you guys just gonna go out there and see what the best way would be to do it, or are you gonna get parental input on it? And or have we gotten parental input on it?
So this is something that has been in development since late last year. To answer your question, it's still in progress, right? There was an initial plan to execute a change by the end of the year. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't rushing and we were doing our due diligence and gathering all information, which would include input from parents, staff, administration, and visitors as well, just so we're making an educated decision as we move forward. Again, nothing has been decided currently. This is still something that needs to be worked out. It absolutely, like any safety initiative here, we're looking to receive feedback from all affected students in the district. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any board members' comments? Anyone like to say?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone colleagues for your hard work, showing up, being there for the students. I wanted to say thank you to the students for showing up. I know it's not easy. Sometimes they don't feel well, but they still come out and they do their best. Teachers, staff, community, and everyone's village, thank you so much, because some of us couldn't make it on a daily basis. Some of us couldn't get to meetings, couldn't do anything if we didn't have support from our village. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for all your hard work, and thank you for being here with us always so late.
I wanted to welcome the staff and teachers this year. This is an exciting year. I know that everybody's working so hard together to make a difference, you know, as far as attendance, and we're all doing our best to try to all the teachers to be here in attendance, all the students to be here in attendance. But I know there aren't any parents out here, or, so, with the exception of who's up here. But I do want to, if any parents are listening to this, I really do want to encourage more participation and encourage school sites to really have more input from parents. This should be a really welcoming place for parents, and we certainly support that and want to see more activities with parents, and hopefully we will be able to encourage more parent participation. Thank you.
I'll keep my short and sweet. I just want to welcome everyone back for this school year. I know we've been in for 5 weeks. Wow. I'm extremely grateful for everyone showing up and being there for the kids and doing what they can, and I'm hearing good things. So I think we're off to a good start, hearing good things. And thank you all for your hard work, dedication, and helping improve the school district, you know, helping create a better future for our kids. I really appreciate it. So thank you and have a good night.
All right, thank you for everyone for all your hard work. And I saw lots of pictures regarding the Stagecoach Parade, the street fair, back to school night. It was great participation from our families and our staff, and that's what makes our community amazing. So I'm looking forward to all the other events that are coming up this month, including, I believe it's the Veterans Appreciation Football. It's mid-September, hoping to be able to attend that. And the podcast, like Mr. David mentioned, we do encourage you to put it off. So I learned a lot from the people that hosted. It's really neat. It's really neat to see a different perspective from them and hear them in a different space. And Lynette asked 5, I think it was called, those questions where they share their favorite music and everything. So that's interesting. So I do encourage you to participate in, and by listening, and if you ever get invited. I'm also looking forward to the Hispanic Heritage Celebration. So it's exciting to see what our sites do in order to celebrate that. And I hope that our families are already connected with the Apogee platform. I know that our staff are working diligently to ensure that it's working successfully and you're able to communicate to other parents. So definitely want to see that continue to be a success, and obviously let us know if there's any hiccups, because that's how we learn and improve. As always, I'm here and available if there's any questions or concerns. Thank you.
I'm used to going first. I just want to start with that. I want to thank everyone for being here so late. I just want to say I'm also very encouraged. I see the district going in the right direction and cleaning up some things that needed to be cleaned up and taken care of. And I appreciate all staff, from janitors to administration. Thank you, everybody, for what you do for our kids. Thank you.
Item 11, future board items. Does anyone have any items they'd like to bring up?
And at some time, we're gonna work on the governance calendar to improve it over what it is right now.
So the draft that was provided, see feedback if we can adjust.
Okay, okay, great.
At this time, the board will now reconvene in closed session. The time is 9:46.
I